Bill or Sarah, can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
And the screen you can currently see is the PowerPoint, correct?
Yeah, it's looked good. I guess if no one shows up, we'll wait about 5 minutes and you can just do the presentation and post it.
That's fine.
Gotta report it. I don't know, because
It's recording.
we have one more of these, is that correct?
Yeah, we have a night meeting next week.
Okay.
It was interesting. I had people over the weekend logging into this meeting just because people will click on a link to log in.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, they're anxious now. Where are they at? I guess they have a minute.
Yeah.
Where are we at on the well, accessible parking board? Remember, we don't talk about now, but I know we need to get that worked out.
Yeah, I'll update you after this meeting.
Okay.
All right, we're going to give it to about 12:03, 12:04. Allow people to join, and then we'll start the meeting. Give it about 2 more minutes, and then we will start the meeting. Allow people some time to join, and then get going with our presentation. All right. Well, we're going to get started, and I'm sure people will trickle in as we go. But Thank you for joining us today for this lunch and learn session on a proposed zoning ordinance amendment related to contractors, offices, and shops and construction vehicles. I'll start off by saying that this meeting is recorded and will be posted on our zoning ordinance amendment webpage for this project. I'll also like to say that in the chat function, I have put a couple different links to include our link to our webpage for this amendment. A link to the Fairfax County Gov Delivery sign up. So Gov Delivery is a system that took over listservs. And if you're interested in learning about this amendment, other amendments, and any upcoming opportunities to engage in zoning ordinance amendments, the Gov Delivery link is how you would sign up to get emails and notifications of those upcoming meetings. And then lastly, before we start, I'll say that in the draft or in the chat box as well, we have a link to our current draft text. Our draft text for contractors, offices, and shops was posted last week. And we would like to hear anyone's opinions regarding that. And we will be given an update on the draft text as well as this project as part of this presentation. So just generally a timeline of what this is, or a timeline of this project. This zoning ordinance amendment started as a research project coming out of the zoning ordinance modernization amendment in 2021. And in that time, our office was asked by the board to meet with stakeholders and other community groups to determine if there was any sort of flexibility that should be added to the use contractors, offices, and shops. And at the time, it was kind of focused on landscape contractors and other type of arborist, tree companies, et cetera. And through that outreach, we realized that there was definitely an opportunity to add flexibility to the ordinance as it pertains to contractors, offices, and shops, as well as construction vehicles and our definitions and regulation of construction vehicles. So as part of that process, one of my colleagues who joins us today, Sarah Morgan, held these community outreach meetings and then presented to both the Planning Commission and the board's land use committees kind of on our findings. And it was in that time in 2022 that the board asked us to kind of promote this to a full-on zoning ordinance amendment. And so in the winter of this year, as well as earlier in this year in the spring, we started kind of a re-kickstart of this project. As many of you are aware, our office had been working on some pretty major zoning ordinance amendments, such as parking reimagined, landscaping and screening, et cetera. And we felt that this project really deserved that re-kickstart to engage the community. And so throughout this year, we've been meeting with stakeholder groups, community groups. We've held lunch and learn such as this, as well as other community meetings, and have presented to both the board's land use committee as well as the Planning Commission's land use policy review committee on kind of our suggestions related to this amendment. And earlier in July, we met with the board's land use committee, and at that time we issued a detailed white paper kind of explaining our findings on this project and explaining our findings regarding where we think added flexibility should be proposed in the ordinance as it relates to contractors, offices, and shops and construction vehicles. And so right now, where we are is kind of in that later phase of community outreach, and it's in attempting to kind of gain feedback on the draft text that we just recently posted related to this amendment. Our goal is to go through the Board of Supervisors authorization of public hearings of this amendment later this month, and then hopefully by the end of the year, have this amendment go to both the Planning Commission and the board for public hearings. So the use contractor's office and shop and our existing provisions related to it, it's a very kind of a broad category when it comes to the definition. This use includes electricians. It includes your tradesmen, your painting groups, flooring groups, tiling, roofing, HVAC, your general kind of home and commercial renovation type contractors. But it also includes groups such as we mentioned earlier, landscape contractors, your tree companies, your arborists, and any sort of lawn maintenance, hardscape type groups. So this is a use that's broad and has a lot of different types of businesses that can fall under it. So currently the use is permitted in the C8, so the commercial 8 highway commercial district, I3, I4, I5, and I6 industrial districts, and in the PTC district when shown on a final development plan. The existing provisions that we want to talk about that essentially regulate these uses really come down to these specific standards. So in the C8, the I3, and the I4 districts, so in our highway commercial districts and our kind of medium intensity industrial districts, currently this use as well as other uses are limited to 500 square feet of outdoor storage. That must be screened from view. And there's provisions of the zoning ordinance which prohibit the outdoor parking or storage of construction equipment, machinery, and similar vehicles used to transport these types of equipment and machinery. And an issue that we found through our outreach was that we, in our ordinance, do not define construction vehicles. This was done through interpretation. And as part of this project, we were asked by the board to kind of look at, what is a way for us to create definitions of construction vehicles, equipment, et cetera, so that our ordinance can be more objective instead of subjective. So some of the changes we're really looking at here as part of this amendment is like I mentioned, defining these construction vehicles. And the way that we are proposing to do that is through creation of two new definitions, both light and heavy vehicles and equipment. And so this would be kind of getting rid of the subjective construction term in the ordinance and replacing it with these objective definitions. We'd also be looking at allowing for your light and heavy vehicles and equipment to be kept in industrial districts. So your traditional construction equipment we think of, your dump trucks, your excavators, your other heavier pieces of equipment like larger stake bed trucks, et cetera, that currently are not allowed to be kept in the I3 and the I4 district. We would be looking at provisions to allow for keeping of those types of vehicles there. We would also be looking at continuing the prohibition of the keeping of traditional construction equipment and machinery within the C8 district unless approved through a special exception process. And so one of the things we're proposing is that, along with other options, is the ability to allow for someone like a tree company, let's just say, and this is an example, any contractor could apply for the special exception in the C8 district, but the example would be a tree company that has a large chipper truck, or it has a truck that is made to have a man lift on it to allow someone to prune trees. Well, currently we would find that those vehicles are a little bit more intensive than originally expected or allowed to be kept in those commercial districts. But there's something that's very integral to that use. And so we feel that allowing for the keeping of those types of vehicles through a special exception would be appropriate. And that's currently what we are proposing. And now that would be something that would be specific to the type of vehicle, and it would be specific to the site itself, and it would be up to the board to decide if they feel that it is appropriate for those to be kept in the site. So as I mentioned, these two main definitions, which are the light and heavy vehicles and equipment. And so light vehicles. So light vehicles are our traditional contractor vehicles we think of. Through our outreach and through our research, we found that there were different types of vehicles that were commonly seen with these uses, and there was concern regarding where they could be kept and a bit of confusion in some cases. So we looked into other parts of the ordinance to kind of figure out how we could regulate these types of vehicles and equipment. And we kind of came up with this, and also other jurisdictions, and we came up with this, the proposed definitions for light vehicles and equipment, which would allow for these types of vehicles to be kept in the commercial districts as well, or the C8 district, as well as in the I3, I4, I5, I6, et cetera. And those light vehicles and equipment would be defined as anything that is 28 feet in length and under, has a gross vehicle weight rating of less than 16,001 pounds, is 12, no more than 12 feet in height, contains no more than 3 axles, and for equipment, this is not just vehicles, this is also things like small skid steers, ditch witches, in some cases like small little trench rollers and things that have a rated operating capacity of not more than 2,000 pounds. And so an important kind of clarification regarding this definition is that any vehicle or equipment that would exceed this definition, would exceed any part of this. So if I have a 16-foot vehicle or an 18-foot vehicle, but my gross vehicle weight rating is over that 16,001 pounds, that vehicle would be considered heavy and would not be able to be kept in the commercial C8 zoning district. So this, again, was a way that we looked to try to make objective definitions that are easy to understand for the users, for business owners, but also for our enforcement agencies so they can more clearly enforce the zoning ordinance. And then we have our heavy vehicles and equipment. So what we think of as our traditional construction vehicles. So it's anything that exceeds that light standard. This is things like your large stake bag trucks, your dump trucks, your vehicles that might be over 28 feet in length as proposed by the light definitions. And then as currently in the ordinance, we have provisions that call out things like dump trucks, solid waste collection vehicles, cement mixer trucks, and tow and recovery vehicles. And all of these vehicles under this ordinance, regardless of their weight, their length, their size, if I have a dump truck, regardless of what it is, if it's a dump truck, it's considered heavy. And so any of those would fall under the heavy vehicles and equipment standards and would not be permitted to be kept in the commercial district. So some changes we're looking at regarding outdoor storage associated with contractors' offices and shops. Some of the main feedback we got from the community regarding this, specifically contractors in this industry, was that there was a desire to have more outdoor storage by right. There was also a desire to have flexibility of where certain things could be kept. And we found that in many cases, the issue that contractors had was, per se, not finding an office and not finding a location to establish, but finding a location to securely keep pieces of equipment. And also vehicles. And so what we're looking at doing is that in the C8, I3, and I4 districts, we're looking at allowing for an increased amount of by right outdoor storage. And so right now being proposed in the C8 district, I3 and I4, you're allowed 500 square feet of by right outdoor storage. We would be proposing 1,000 square feet of by right outdoor storage in the C8 district and up to 2,000 square feet of by right outdoor storage associated with this use in the I3 and the I4 district. And in the commercial districts, we'd be looking at establishing a special exception process to permit an increased amount of outdoor storage above the by right allowance. And we feel that the special exception is kind of the appropriate way of looking at this, because when we look at sites and we look at places like the Richmond Highway Corridor that have a lot of C8 zone properties, through our research, we found that these C8 properties are really individual, and the ability to allow the community to opine on the impact of an increased outdoor storage on a site that might be adjacent to residential is important. But also allowing that flexibility is also important so that contractors can keep certain types of vehicles and equipment or materials in a larger area outdoors. And so in the I3 and the I4 district, beyond just allowing for increased outdoor storage, again, one of the main things we heard from the community was a need to be able to store certain vehicles, equipment. And in some cases, a contractor didn't need an office. And so a way that we feel that flexibility can be added to the ordinance is by allowing storage yards as a use by right in the I3 and the I4 district when limited to 10,000 square feet. And then also establishing a special exception process in the I3 and the I4 district to permit storage yards over 10,000 square feet. And so some important things to note about outdoor storage of materials and equipment is that in the C8 districts, as well in the I3 and the I4 districts, if a contractor were to have proposed outdoor storage, they would not they would be required to meet site plan approval. So if it's over 500 square feet, they would have to go through a site plan approval to get that outdoor storage noted. And that outdoor storage would need to be screened from view as proposed in the draft text by a fence or a wall of not less than 6 feet in height. Outdoor storage as well would not be permitted to be kept in any sort of a front yard. So just kind of looking at some comparisons here. I'm a visual learner. I think these types of comparisons really help us visualize what we're talking about. So in the top left-hand corner, this is a C8 zone property, by the way. It is a representation of what 500 square feet looks like. 500 square feet is about 3.5 parking spaces. And that's not to say that required parking should be used for storage of materials or equipment, but just kind of as a way for us to visualize this. And what we would be proposing is 1,000 square feet of outdoor storage permitted by right in the C8 district. Again, would need to be fenced or surrounded by a wall of not less than 6 feet in height. And 1,000 square feet is about 7 parking spaces. So in the I3 and the I4 districts, again, currently the outdoor storage permitted for a contractor's office and shop is 500 square feet. And that's shown in the kind of top middle there. And what we are proposing to allow by right associated with the contractor's office and shop is 2,000 square feet of outdoor storage. So that's roughly about 14 parking spaces is how much we'd be permitting. And again, that type of storage would be required to be screened from view by fence or wall. And it's expected that, pieces of equipment, things like bobcats, skid steers, anything that would be associated with a use that's not a vehicle would need to be kept within that outdoor storage area and screened from view. And then kind of lastly, what I wanted to kind of show this example is when we talk about storage yards. So storage yards, like I said, are only permitted in the I-3 and the I-4 district currently through special exception and only when in association with a mini warehouse. So your U-Haul storage, your different mini warehouse type facilities. So we're looking at allowing this use by right in the I-3 and the I-4 district to not exceed 10,000 square feet unless approved by a special exception. So this is not to say that a contractor's office and shop would have 10,000 square feet of outdoor storage by right. But if physical use as a storage yard would be permitted as a different use up to 10,000 square feet. Again, subject to site plan approval and all the land development services requirements that needed for establishing a storage yard. And so this area kind of shown in the bottom left is an actual existing storage yard in the county that's accessory to a industrial building. And in the top right, you see again the 500 square feet, which is the current amount of outdoor by right storage for a contractor's office and shop in the I-3, I-4, and C8 districts. So as you may have noticed, this amendment really impacts the I-3, I-4, and C8 districts. We do not intend any of our regulations to permit the keeping of commercial vehicles or construction vehicles other than what is currently permitted in residential districts. So we're not looking at increasing what's allowed in residential districts. And the impact of this amendment really is targeted towards those I-3, I-4, and C8 districts in response to community concern regarding limited places for these uses to establish and where these types of vehicles and equipment can be kept. So as always, we have a zoning ordinance amendment webpage that includes information regarding our project. It includes information such as a detailed white paper that was presented to the board in July, our current draft text, as well as any upcoming community engagement opportunities. A staff report for this amendment will also be posted on the webpage prior to any public hearings related to this amendment. As mentioned, we're looking to go through authorization in September and hope to have this amendment through board hearings by the end of the year. I wanted to thank everyone for coming today and listening to our presentation regarding this. I will be stopping to share my screen in a second and opening this up for comments or any questions you might have regarding the zoning ordinance amendment. So if anyone has a question, they can either raise their hand using the raise hand function. You can put your question in the chat. You can also, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask at this point. While I wait, I just wanted to note, since I see people have joined on since I started this meeting, that in the chat I dropped links to our amendment webpage as well as the draft text related to the zoning ordinance amendment. All right. Well, if no one has any questions, like I mentioned, this meeting was recorded and will be posted on our zoning ordinance amendment webpage for the contractor's office and shop and construction vehicle project. I will say as well that we are having another community meeting, a night meeting next week. Specifically, that meeting is going to be September the 10th, so next Tuesday at 7:30 or 6:30 to 7:30. If anyone is interested in this or they know anyone interested in this, I would encourage you to invite them to that meeting. And as I said, any other opportunities to outreach will be posted on the contractor's office and shop webpage. So I'll give one last call for any questions. Seeing and hearing none. If anyone has any questions that come up, my contact information is on the webpage, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the zoning ordinance amendment. want to thank everyone for their time, and I will be closing the meeting now. Have a good day.